Hi, welcome to this session on Google Sites. I'm running this as a beginner's session, Sites 101 if you like, and it's designed to take you through the process of creating a Google site from scratch and to creating a number of pages and starting to populate that with resources. I have a fairly defined view of how I like to work on sites. This may not be the way other people do it, but it's certainly the way I do it and certainly the way that works well for me. So you'll either pick up my good habits or my bad habits, but I'm going to try and show you my habits. I'm going to cover in this video all the stuff that you see over here on this menu on the side here, the table of contents, and I'll just quickly run you through that. So the first thing to understand about a site is, and I'm using this is rather meta, I'm having the site within the site here, but the idea of understanding what a site actually is, because it's amazing the number of people who deal with websites on a daily basis but have never stopped to think about what a site actually is and what are the core fundamental ideas of a website. So in really simple terms, you usually have a header, that's this area up here, and the header stays constant on every page, and so no matter which page you go to, you know you're on the right site because it's got the consistent header. It also has a footer, and you'll see down the bottom here, you'll have a footer at the bottom of the page. Typically in your footer you'll have things like copyright notices, it might be a link to a privacy policy, that kind of thing, but you'll put that kind of stuff that should be accessible from any point in the site in the footer. You'll also have a navigation, and you'll see this side here has a horizontal navigation. You can see as I move my mouse across there are buttons across the top. If you've got a site with a small number of pages, horizontal navigation works really well. I find it gets cluttered if you have too many, because then they start to form rows. I personally don't like that, but it's up to you, I suppose. If you've got lots of links from the main page, you probably want to go with, so here's a site that we've built for our school, just for our school laptop policy. We used to give the students a handbook, like a printed handbook with their laptops, and we thought that's pretty silly, so we've turned that handbook into a site, and so all the information about the site is here. This site here has a vertical menu, and you can see the navigations on the side here, but again it's got a header at the top, it's got a footer at the bottom, it's got a navigation system of some sort, be it vertical or horizontal, and it's got an area in the middle for content. And you can see no matter which page I go to, it could be more or less content, so that's just a relatively short page. If I go to this one here, that's a much longer page, and so on. And so the concept of a site then is, have a master page, the home page, which links off to subpages, and if you've got more content you can have subpages under subpages and so on. But I know that seems like a really obvious thing to say, but it's worth just stopping and considering how you want your site to be structured. And I would actually recommend that before you start building a site, you actually get a piece of paper and a pencil and you map out on paper how you want the site to be navigated, and work out what pages go under what other pages, and that will actually dictate a whole lot of stuff about the way you set your site up in the beginning. Trust me on that when I tell you it will save you a lot of time in the long run. In terms of the header, if you want a header, you would create it in something like Photoshop, or you might use Pixlr Editor or some other online tool, but some sort of graphics editing program, you can create that header. If you don't want to use a header, if you just want to have a plain text header, and I probably have an example of one of those here somewhere. Let's try this page, this one here. So you can see here's an example of a site that doesn't have a graphic header, it just uses a piece of text on the top. So there's lots of variations on this theme. Let's go in here and hit the create button. So I'll click create, and I have the option to use a blank template, or I can browse the gallery for more. Now if you go and browse the gallery, you'll find all sorts of really cool looking templates, and it's tempting to want to use them, and I'm going to recommend that you don't. I'm going to say that you should not use templates, at least until you get good at using sites. And that might seem a bit contradictory. You would think that using the template would be a nice easy way to start, and then as you get better at it you can start making your own. I actually think it works the opposite to that. I think you should start by making your own sites, even if they're relatively simple, because to be honest, some of these templates that they provide are so difficult and complex to untangle that it's really hard for a beginner to understand what's going on within most templates. So I would recommend you start from scratch. Now, when you do that, so I'm going to use a blank template, so no template at all, and I give my site a name, so I'll call this test site. Now I can actually use 4 words here, test site for Chris. Okay, and you'll see it does create a URL here, so this will be the whole URL of the site we're going to. You can change this if you don't like that, but it does need to be unique, and if you're in a Google Apps domain, it needs to be unique within the domain. If you're building this on, say, a Gmail account, it actually needs to be unique in the world. So you can see it gets a bit trickier to come up with a unique name if you're out on a Gmail domain. Selecting a theme, I would recommend you select a theme, but I would suggest, unless you're in a hurry and you want to just knock out something really quickly, that you start with a really simple theme and then modify it yourself so it looks the way you want it to look. An example would be, if I go back to that digital citizenship site, so this one was created with a pre-built theme, and if I come back here you can see there it is there, it's called Terra Water. So I just used that theme and that's the site we got, and it looks fine, but if you really want to learn how to create sites properly, I do think you should start with a simple theme. So I'm going to suggest that you start with this one, simply called Simple. I like that one a lot because it is very simple. So chosen my theme, and I'll go down to more options and just look at the options here. I can give my site a category, so I might just call this sample test summit. Okay, I can give my site a description. I'll just call it sample site, and that's it. I'll scroll to the top of the page here and hit create, and it will chug away for a moment and it will make the site. Okay, now if you're doing this on an open Google page, like a Gmail account, you might get a captcha code before it allows you to create the site. That's just to stop spam bots from creating automatic sites. Alright, so here's the basic site. Now, we're good to go. Now, before we get started, the temptation is to dive in and start creating pages, and I actually think that's a bad idea. I think you should set a whole bunch of structures in place first, because it just makes it way easier later on. So the first thing I'd suggest you do is to set the privacy options. Who can see this site? And let's just have a look. If I click on the More button and go down to Sharing and Permissions, you'll see that this site is currently visible by only me and anyone within PLC Sydney, so within the school I work at. Now, if you're doing this on a Gmail domain, you'll probably find this defaults to anyone in the world. It will be visible too. And I'm going to suggest that while you're working on this page, you probably just want to make it private. So I'll click Change here, and you can see I have a number of privacy levels. Because I'm in an apps domain, I get the ones for our organisation. If you're on a Gmail account, you won't get these two here. But I want this to be private, so I'll just say private and say save. Okay, so it's now a private site. I can go back to the front page here. The next thing I'd do is I'd just change the layout option. So I would decide what I want in terms of navigation and structures and everything else. So let's do that. Let's click on More and go down to Edit Site Layout. Now this is a fairly new feature. It used to be done differently. There was a layout options in this Manage Site category, but they've moved it into its own category here. So let's click on that. And what it does is it gives you this bar across the top here. So I'm going to theme this up with the same logo that I'm using on the Summit site, and it's a graphical that I've got it stored on my desktop. So let's look at how we do that. So I'm going to, where it says site width, first of all I want to change the width to 1000. It's just the size I like using, but you can make yours any size you like. Type 1000 in there and press enter, and be patient when you do that because it does some back-end stuff, and you can see the site's actually just changed. If I make that a smaller number just so you can see the difference, let's make it something like 600, which would be ridiculously small, but let's try it and press enter. You can see that it has a think and it narrows down the site like that. So that's how you change the width of the site, just by changing that number there. Let's just go back to 1000 pixels, press enter and wait. Okay, and so it does that there. Now, if you wanted to have horizontal navigation rather than vertical, then you could click here, horizontal navigation, and you can see that it will create we've only got one page so far, so it creates this home button, but it creates this row for your horizontal navigation. I've still got the vertical or the sidebar navigation, and it probably doesn't make sense to have both. So I'm going to decide which one I want to go with here, and I think I want to go with the let's go with the horizontal. So I'm going to turn sidebar off by clicking this button here, and you can see the sidebar navigation goes away. Alright, and what I'll do is I'll build this menu across the top here. Alright, so that's pretty much the way I want it. I would like a custom footer, so I'll turn that button on there, and it creates this area at the bottom, and I'll just add some text in there. I'll say copyright, see my typing's having a bad day today, 2013. That'll do for now. Alright, and when I click OK to that, it will replace that and put a copyright notice in the bottom. You can put anything you like in the footer. Now, as I mouse across here, you can see this area turns this light shade. So that's the header area, this is the horizontal navigation area, and this is the footer area. And if I want to make changes to any of those areas, I simply click in it, just like that, and it opens up a dialog box. Now, right now, I've got this little school logo in here, and I actually would prefer a custom logo. So I'll click custom logo and choose the file I want, and it's right here on the desktop, and it will upload. And again, be patient with this. Don't click OK until you see this appear, because otherwise it simply won't take. So once I've done that, I can click OK, and it should have a little think there, and sure enough, so there it is. It's put the header in. So far so good. So I've got my header, I've set this to horizontal navigation, and I've put a footer in, so I think that's pretty good. I'm done with that. Let's click close. Right, so there's my site. Now let's just fine tune a little more. I'm going to go back up into more and say manage site, and you might have noticed that well, I'll just actually go back. You might have noticed on so I just have to refresh this page so I can see the latest version of it. There you go. It still says test site for Chris here, even though I've put a header in. So I don't want this at all. So I'm going to go to more. Sorry about the noise here. I've got classes going on around me. I'll click on the manage site, and I don't want this to show, so I'll simply untick it just like that. I can go down through this page. There's a few other settings that's worth looking at. I can have a search box on my page. At the moment it's turned on. You can see it's enabled. If you don't want the search box, you can untick that. You can also choose what it searches. So if you don't want to search this site, you could get it to search all sites within our domain if you're on an app's domain, or you could get it to search Google. So, and you can have one or all of those. I'm just going to get it to search this site. Say OK to that. Some other things you might want to change here is if you scroll down, you'll see there's a checkbox to automatically adjust site to mobile phones. Very handy option if you're building a site that you'd like people to be able to access on mobile, so worth ticking. And down here under access settings, you can, now this is not who can edit the site, this is who can access the site activity. So a user may be able to go to the site and look at all the things that have happened on the site. They may be able to go and see all the things that have changed, and you can change who can see that. The defaults are probably pretty good, but it's worth being aware that that option is there. If you have a Google Analytics account, you can set up analytics here by turning that on and sticking your analytics code in there, but for the purpose of this exercise I won't worry about that. So we'll say save, and you'll see, oh, we got to go back, sorry, that always catches me out. I've got to click that button, and you can see that piece of text is gone from the side there. There's the search box we set up. Right, on to the next bit. Let's make some pages. So when you're in edit mode, there's some buttons on the top here, and you'll see there's a little pencil. That's the editing button. So if I wanted to change this page, I would hit the edit button, and if I want to add new pages, there's a button here. So let's click new page. The shortcut for that is the C key. I don't know why it's C, but it is. So just to keep this really simple, I'm just going to call this page 1, and you can select which template to use. Now there are actually 5 templates if you're on an apps domain, I think 4 if you're on a Gmail account, for different types of pages you could add. While you're learning to use this stuff, I dare say most of the pages you'll choose will simply be a web page, but you could also have announcements, which would basically turn that page into a blog style page where you can add posts. There's a file cabinet, which is where you can create a page which contains a bunch of files. So if you wanted your students to have access to a list of, say, PDF documents or files of some sort, you could create a file cabinet where they could download from. You can create a list. So if you're looking to collect information and ask students to contribute, say, the favourite book they've just read, you can create a list page where a student can go to that page, click a button, and add to the list. So they're the 4 ones. I won't cover Start Page because it's specific to Google Apps domains. And really, most of the time, I think you're going to choose Web Page anyway. They should probably be put at the top level. That will mean they'll go into the top level navigation. Alright, let's say Create. And what you should see when we go back to this front page here is we now have a page 1 created. Let's just create a few more. When you create a page, it opens in edit mode, which you'll see I have a save button here, so let's just save that. Okay, now that page is created. Right, let's create a few more. Let's just make page 2, create, and again it opens up in edit mode, so we'll say save. Now you might be wondering why these pages are not appearing here in the navigation. I'll show you that in just a second. Let's just make one more page. I'll call this one page 3, create. So 3 pages will do for now. But you get the idea. So you can just keep clicking this button in the top corner here and it will continue to make pages. Alright, now we need to adjust this navigation because it's not showing what we want to show. So let's go back to this edit site layout where we were before, and you'll see that under horizontal navigation, where we've set it up here, if I click that, the horizontal navigation you actually create manually. So I'm going to add a page in here. So I want to add pages 1, 2 and 3. So here's page 1. So I'll choose that. And this is a bit of a trap. The OK button is actually off the bottom of the page, so I have to scroll down to see it. It catches people out. So I want page 1. I also want to add a page. Let's add page 2. Scroll down, click OK. I also want page 3. Add page. Let's choose page 3 and say OK. And you can also add URLs. So let's say I wanted to have a link on this front page to our school website. So I could click Add URL, give it text to display. I'll put it in PLC Sydney. The URL for that is www.plc.nsw.edu.au. Okay, just like that, and say OK. And you can see it adds a link in there. Now, this is the order that the links are in at the moment. If you didn't want them in this order, and obviously I do, but let's say I wanted page 3 for some reason to be the first page, I can click on it and use the arrows to push it up or down. So I can reorder the pages. If page 2 was a child of page 1, I could choose that and indent it, and now it becomes like a sub-page of page 1. So there's a lot of power in this little screen here. If you wanted to include things like a sitemap or a link to the recent site activity, you can turn these on here just like that. In a horizontal navigation, you can also tell it whether you want to be boxes, which is what we've got at the moment, or tabs or links. I personally like tabs, but your choice. So I'll say OK to that, and when it refreshes, you see here's the navigation we've just put in place. There's the links to the 3 pages. It always includes the home page, and here's the link out to PLC Sydney that I put in as well. That's just a link to an external site. So pretty straightforward just to change the navigation. It's the same kind of thing. I'll just put the sidebar back for a moment, and you'll see it will add the sidebar over here. Right now, sidebars are a little different. Sidebars are automatically created. If you're clever about the way you do this, you could create a structure where the horizontal navigation took you to the main categories and the sidebar took you to sections within each category. It's just a matter of fiddling with the settings to get that. So there could be cases where you would want horizontal and vertical navigation together, if you thought about it. In this case, they're doing exactly the same thing, so they're a bit redundant. Unlike the horizontal navigation, where we had to go in and set the settings for that, the vertical navigation here automatically gets created, but it does it in alphabetical order, and often that's not what you want. Often you'll get pages just put in there in any old order, and it won't be the one you want. So you do need to usually click in there, untick this box that says automatically organize my navigation, and then go through the same process again to order the pages the way you want them. Okay, so that's a slightly different thing whether you're doing a vertical or a horizontal navigation. I don't want this, so I'll just click on sidebar again to get rid of it. And once it goes away, I'll say close, and there you go. That's the guts of setting up the site, really. Beyond that, there's adding content to pages. So let's just go to page 1 here. And so if I want to add content to this page, I would click the little pencil icon up the top. It would open up the page for editing. This is essentially a wiki. So you click the edit button, you make your change, you click the save button, it's done. Much like other wikis, if you've used other wikis. You'll notice that this page comprises of a single edit field. So that's where your edit area is. You can change that. If you go into layout up here, you have the option. You see we've got 1 column simple at the moment. You can go to simple 2 column, 3 column simple. You also have this other option here. I'll just choose, say, this 2 column. And what it gives you is a wide area at the top, 2 columns, and then a wide area at the bottom. If you choose to not use these wide areas, let's say you want one at the top but not the bottom, just leave it empty and it will take up 0 room once the page refreshes. So you do have some layout options. The trap that a lot of people fall into when they're dealing with web pages is they try and treat it like a Word document or an InDesign document, where they try and get really specific about the layout of things. They want images to be in a certain way and text to wrap around in a certain way, and it really doesn't work nicely like that. That's simply not the way web pages work. So yeah, I would give up on that idea if I was you, and just simply go with the flow. Web pages work the way web pages work, and so don't fight it. It really is setting yourself up for a world of pain. So you'll type your content in here, blah 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 blah. So I'll just put that in there. Now, if you want to add extra content in here, if you go to this menu up here that says Insert, there is a bunch of things in here, and I probably don't have the time to go through these, but it's worth just knowing. Images, if you want to insert an image, you can click on the image button, and then you can go and upload an image to the site. So you'll choose a file, find an image. I don't know if I've got one here, probably not, and just upload it to the site and say OK, and it will just display the image. Likewise, the other common one people would want to use is a YouTube video. So again, video, you choose which one you want here. So let's say it's YouTube, and you'd simply paste the URL of the YouTube video in there, decide whether you want borders and titles and all that sort of stuff, and then it would paste it in there. Other common ones that you would use, a table of contents, and again you can see the table of contents on the side here. Table of contents work if you've put your text in using styles, and by that I mean if I put in some text onto this page here, I have the option of formatting it using heading levels, so heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, or normal paragraph text. And so long as you structure your text using headings, then when you create, by inserting a table of contents, it will actually automatically structure the table of contents for you based on the heading levels you've created. So that's kind of neat. It is pretty important with web pages that you stick to that sort of heading style kind of approach to creating text. It really does save a lot of headaches later on. But you can add in here charts. You can, if you've got a document, you can embed the document into here. You can insert whole folders full of stuff from your Google Drive. There's maps, photographic slideshows. You can stick in a Google presentation slideshow. You'll see one at the very bottom of this page. And so there's lots and lots of options in this insert menu that are probably outside the scope of this particular talk, but we might be able to have a play with those. And that's basically it. When you get to the end and you've built your site, you've added all your content, you've got your pictures and videos and text and whatever else might go in here, and you consider it ready to show people, don't forget, I'll just save that, don't forget to go back to the More menu, back to Sharing and Permission, and turn it off private so other people can see it. So if you are ready to publish it now, you can publish it within your organization by clicking that, or you can publish it to the web by clicking that, or there are some other options there that make that slightly more private, but not very much. But I'm a public kind of guy, so I put everything public on the web. And that's basically it. Sites is pretty powerful. There's a lot more you can do with it, but within the constraints of the time we've got here. Oh, sorry, there's one more thing I wanted to show you, and that is to customize. If you want to customize the way things look, so let's just go back to the site. So for example, you see this site's got this grey background, and there's a certain sort of style of text here being used. If I want to change that, if you go to More, Manage Site, and then to the section that says Colors and Fonts, you'll find that every part of the page is in this list here. So if I scroll down there, you'll see everything on the page. And if you've heard of a thing called CSS, this is all the CSS definitions here, cascading style sheets. So for example, page background color, if I click on that, then over here I can choose. Now at the moment it's using the default for the theme, the simple theme, or I can have none, in which case it just turns white, or I can say custom, and I can pick my own color. So let's go with, say, a nice yellow. So there you go, it's showing there in the yellow color. If I wanted to have, say, let's say you don't like the font on the page, you can click that and say custom, and then you can choose a different font. So I'm going to choose something where you can see it's different. Not that I'd actually use it, but let's say this one, because it will be really obvious. So you can see there it changes all the font on the page, and that will affect all your headers and everything else. It's just a master style for all the text. I don't recommend you do that personally. I guess you can do what you like though. Let's go back to normal. And so the same thing, if you want to change anything about this, if you want to change the color of these buttons, for example, you can scroll down here till you find so horizontal navigation here, and we've got horizontal navigation background color. So that would be the button. So let's choose that. Let's make our buttons green. So I'll choose the green, and there you go. So we've got green buttons. This one didn't go green because that is the selected. Where is it? Horizontal navigation selected background color. Because we're on the home page, it's a selected tab, so it can be a different color. So let's choose that. Go to custom. Let's make that one red, and you can see it goes red. And so you do have quite a bit of control over the color scheme. And that's what I mean by not just choosing a template in the beginning, but rather choosing a simple template and then making these changes to it. You learn an awful lot more about the way this works. And once you understand this, it makes it far simpler to go back to a pre-built template and pull it apart and actually start to understand what's going on. So there you go. Look, I'm sorry this is such a long video, but hopefully that will step you through many of the things we've covered in the session, and you get a chance to revisit anything you weren't sure about. Thanks for watching.